No, we'll just get a good phone.
Hidden cameras.
Yeah, because they can't take away the cameras, really. And I think it's cowardice on part of the police that they are even contemplating that fact, because that is again shutting down a freedom of speech.
Yeah.
It's freedom of expression, and they're rather than.
But let's face it, they're not the first to do that. Look
No,
at
of course
YouTube,
not.
look at Twitter,
Absolutely.
look what they've been doing.
No, absolutely. We've got this culture developing in our society where we are walking into other people taking away our free speech. If the police take away the cameras, what they're doing is they're taking away free expression. What they should be doing is policing people who can't control themselves. And the police taking away cameras is dealing with the cobwebs rather than the spider.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Good point.
So my advice to the police is do your jobs. Like, if someone is being a dickhead, exclude them from the park.
Yeah.
Don't take away the
So-
cameras just because it shows how much you're not policing.
So what is your view on why do they not do that?
Because I think that it is a case that the way that the police are trained is they are trained to keep the peace. That's their imperative.
Mm-hmm.
So they find the path of least resistance to keep the peace, which means that if a mob forms and wants to drive someone out of Speaker's Corner, it is easier for them to acquiesce to the demands of the mob
Yep.
than it is to defend free speech
Yep.
and take the mob on.
And as you pointed out, where does that end up?
Where does it
ends up
end
with
up?
the mob ruling.
Exactly. And the human rights law, that EU institution, says that there should be, in terms of the limit on freedom of speech, there should be no veto of the mob.
Yeah.
So if the police police on the basis of the veto of the mob, they're not policing human rights law, because human rights law says there is no veto of the mob. So what should happen is an American-style situation where the police go, look, if you think this guy's a dickhead and he thinks you're a dickhead, scream at one another all you want. But if you get too aggressive, you stand on that side of the street, you stand on that side of the street, and just shout at them. And that's how they should police it. Just, that's how it should be treated. If you don't like what you're hearing and you can't control yourself, walk away, stand somewhere else, speak against them. But what they're doing at the moment is taking people out of the park, and it sounds like contemplating the removal of cameras. And all that will do is mean that the police get off the hook. That's what will happen.
And would you agree with me that there are a lot of people putting forward a narrative that it's the right that have caused the violence and the problems here, and it's the likes of Tommy Robinson, and it's the likes of people who come here and speak out against Islam that are causing the problem, whereas the reality of the chronology of the problems completely predates the likes of Tommy Robinson coming here for half an hour once. It completely predates that. Sarah got his Osman warning, 18 months ago, 24 months ago, way before any one of the FLA, DFLA veterans against terrorism.
All of these,
yet they're forgetting that reality.
Because they're selectively forgetting that reality.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we have a news article that's appeared in a magazine that so-called films get cited in which it describes Speaker's Corner as being taken over by the extreme right. And we're going to do a response to that because it's a complete assassination. Not of so-called films, incidentally, but of the real situation.
Is that the Mel, I can't remember what the website is, article?
Yeah, that one. But the point is, Christopher, the Kurdish convert from Islam to Christianity, was attacked before Tommy Robinson.
Again, punched off his ladder.
Punched off his ladder. Jay Smith was attacked before Tommy Robinson. Sarah Garvey was attacked before Tommy Robinson.
By the Muslims.
There are plenty of examples of people. There are plenty of examples of people being attacked before Tommy Robinson. That is where the aggression has come from. And to blame that on the far right is to simply ignore all the history of what has happened in the last few years here before Tommy Robinson ever came to this place. And the Liberal are just using this place to create their own narrative, to villainise the extreme right.
And his presence, his attendance at Speaker's Corner was directly in response to that history of violence going on here, and one group trying to physically intimidate and bully their dominance here.
Absolutely, and whilst we're speaking about that, like, Tommy Robinson coming here has every right to come here, but I will call out the fact that his supporters, not necessarily Tommy Robinson, but his supporters, I saw them myself.
Some
I
think you probably should be saying.
Yeah, you're right. My apologies. Let me correct.
And the kingpin.
No, you're quite right. You're quite right to correct me. Some of his supporters, I saw them myself, pulled someone off a ladder. And that is not the spirit. If you came here to defend free speech, that means you're here to defend speech that you don't like as well. Which means if someone wants to get up on a ladder and criticise you and criticise Tommy Robinson, you should let him. You can boo him, you can heckle him.
But I will, and you're completely right, and that violence should not have happened. But I will point out that if someone got up in that individual's meeting and put the ladder in close proximity, he would not have been very happy with that situation. He was. It doesn't excuse or make it right, but he was being directly provocative by trying to get up on a ladder within someone else's large meeting. And we know from experience he gets very irate if someone does that to him, or if someone's just shouting on the ground.
I mean, he can get as irate as he wants. No one should have put a hand on him.
No, and you are correct on that.
They should have heckled him, they should have ignored him, they should have laughed at him. There's a million ways they could have responded, but pulling him off the ladder was not the way to go.
I agree.
But Tommy Robinson coming here and giving a speech is part of the culture of what it is. Karl Marx gave speeches at Speaker's Corner. Lots of controversial figures have given speeches at Speaker's Corner. So that it's part of the culture, and the fact that there was even the thought that Muslims could stop Tommy Robinson coming here.
Well, they literally and physically formed a battle line. I mean, it was self-evident. They called themselves into a militaristic line, and some of them have subsequently been excluded for their behaviour on that day.
I think. Can I just say? I think that what needs to happen, if the police really want to stop things getting worse in Speaker's Corner, they need to ramp up the exclusion orders for people that have a history of being a nuisance, being aggressive. Anyone who uses aggression, like physical aggression, because obviously, I shout a lot,
well, can I give you an example? Today, a well-known Muslim, Modine, physically threw a drink of lemonade or something in someone else's face.
Yeah.
That was immediately reported to the police. And do you know what the police's response was?
Not interested.
If he does it again, we'll give him a warning, or we'll give him an exclusion
and that's
order.
The kind
so
of
even throwing your face in throwing your drink in a female's face was not felt sufficient for the police to deal with that individual there and there.
But do you agree with me, Steve, that the danger is if people start to feel threatened and they can't see appropriate defence coming from the police, they will start to organise themselves to fill the vacuum.
Absolutely.
And that is the danger of what is happening with this soft kind of policing of aggression, is that ultimately if you look to the police and the police go, well, I don't want to get involved in that, then because it's not free expression to chuck your drink, that's assault. It should have been treated as assault.
I was saying earlier is that today, you were saying that you were complaining that in your experience of Speaker's Corner, that people have shouted in your face, said abusive words, and possibly pushed or assaulted you in some minor way, or maybe major way. But to be honest, Bob, I've seen you do that today.
No, but what you didn't hear...
No, I saw.
Yeah, what you didn't hear in that little synopsis you just gave is I said to Leon, you take the rough with the tumble. Because I don't mind people heckling me. I don't mind people insulting me. And I've said this publicly, it's been coming out through social phones. I don't mind people heckling me.
Yeah.
Steve, God bless him, when I first came, but this guy used to heckle me.
But I'm not talking about heckling. There was a guy who wanted to put his bag in front of Mr. Socko Film's camera, and you moved his arm away.
Because, I did that instinctively. No, I have to apologise to that guy.
So that's assault, right? And it's also he although Mr. JC has a right to film, I also have a right to do that, and we can't change that.
No, I'm not going to repeat a mistake. I owe the guy an apology. Yeah.
What I'm saying is that we're all hypocrites.
Right, but hold on one second.
No, you cannot compare the level of violence and intimidation and thuggery between
we're all in conflict. There is a stark difference between me chucking my drink in your face and someone putting his hand in front of someone else's camera and then someone moving the hand down. Technically, legally, they both count as assault. Fair enough. However, there is a clear difference in
And
tone
actually, what that guy, I don't know if it's does or does.
Here's the other difference.
But what
Hold
he
on
was,
1 second. Here's the other difference. Is now you've pointed out, because I really did that and genuinely did not clock it myself that I'd done that. But now you've pointed it out to me. If I meet that other guy, and I will apologise to him. Something tells me Mo Dean won't be coming back to apologise to the guy who's took the drink.
But it's an escalation of conflict, and actually that's what that guy was saying, the guy with the beard, was around religions and Islam and Christianity needing each other. There's a reciprocal kind of relationships that happen both between ourselves and other people and within our minds that is around conflict. And what I would say is that the main issue is that actually we have to be non-conflicting in ourselves and try not to be hypocritical. You know, you talked about people in particular, some people in this corner not being able to control themselves, and actually this is an example of actually how control is lost in the individual, even in yourself.
If I can reply, again, you're trying to form a moral equivalence between someone moving a hand down and chucking a drink in the face. Now, I'll be genuine. I honestly did not clock that I did that. I just did that automatically. I didn't even register it in my own mind. And I'm
Do you think somebody did like throw the drink in their face as a emotional reaction?
But hold on. This is the danger of the kind of liberal soppiness culture that we've got in this country. Is they try to create moral equivalence where moral equivalents don't exist, right? Technically, under the law, yeah, they're both assault, but clearly to any common sense man, there's a difference between those two events, and I'm willing to apologise. Mo Dean will not be apologising. So the thing is, the danger with this kind of narrative that we get from the liberal do-gooders is that they want to create...
Lily Livered.
I'm allowed to heckle you, bro. Speakers.
It's all right. It's okay.
You're speaking. That's technically not heckling, right? You're the speaker.
Exactly. So the point
That's
is...
just abuse.
The point is... Well, I'm glad you recognise that being a liberal progressive is an inclusive term.
I'm going to confront you on that.
Especially abusive when you don't actually know my belief system.
The point is, this kind of liberal do-gooder narrative is dangerous, because what it essentially says is don't stand up for yourself. That's what it says. It says don't stand up for yourself, don't stand up for your boundaries, your borders, your frontiers. What it says is and ultimately the way that will work out in practice is that the bully wins. If we all follow this guy's logic, the bully wins.
That is not liberalism.
Follow your
that is
logic,
not liberalism. You and I share the same concerns, I believe, on the subject of Islam, absolutely together with you on that concern. You continually blame it on the liberalism of society, etc., etc. I wholly disagree with that. I view myself as a left of centre liberal, and it's because of that I stand against Islam, or certainly many interpretations of Islam, which I view as far-right, fascistic, intolerant. It's because of my political position that I stand so fully against that. Yet you continually almost blame the whole problem on the liberal society.
Yeah, I think you come across to me more as a classical liberal as opposed to a liberal progressive. And the thing is that you come across more like a classical liberalism. And the reason why classical liberals have more in common with Christians is because classical liberalism is a much closer historical movement it grew out of Christianity and is closer to Christianity. Which means classical liberals often find themselves agreeing with Christians, and Christians often find themselves
So maybe you should be more precise in your use of the word liberal.
But liberalism as it is understood today, because let's be honest, most people don't know the distinction.
Well, to me, right or wrongly, a substantial bit of liberalism is tolerance. However, we must not, and I'm sure you agree with this, we must not be and should not be tolerant of the intolerant. And surely that's part of liberalism.
I wouldn't cut the cake that way, but I get what you're saying.
But you're accusing me of liberalism, whatever it is. But actually, I was accusing.
Liberal do-gooder.
Yeah, as a liberal do-gooder.
Right.
But I was accusing you of being a hypocrite.
That's
nothing to do with me being liberal or not.
Yeah, you can call me a hypocrite. I mean, a hypocritus is someone who wears a mask and pretends to be one thing publicly and another thing in private. That's a hypocrite.
I think it's they do something, or they say something, but they do something different to what they say.
Well, maybe he was criticising something that he hasn't reached perfection in himself.
Exactly.
What's that?
Much like an alcoholic who recognises that he needs to get off alcohol, but can't yet bring himself to do it.
You know, I mean,
it's not a hypocrite not to be perfect. Even if you're striving to perfection. And Christianity is a religion in which we have this perfect ideal. Be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. Now, all Christians understand that that is an unachievable goal, but the striving towards it and failing is not the same as hypocrisy.
Okay, another...
Hypocrisy is someone pretending to be something in public, like, say, being a Dawa missionary, and then sending...
dick pics.
Dick pics.
Is that a good example?
That would be an example.
Not naming names.
well, that's an
Just for
example
the
of it.
benefit, or just for the benefit of honesty, otherwise I will then be...
You haven't done it, have you, Bob?
No.
Holy fuck!
Just for the benefit.
If anyone out there who's
Hold on,
got
be honest
Bob's
now.
Just for the benefit, just so that I'm not a hypocrite, I have to confess publicly that I have struggled with sexuality in my own life, and still do, you know, as a red-blooded man. So I cannot stand in judgment. But the fact that I am willing to confess that publicly means I'm not a hypocrite.
Can I give an example of where you can put across that message that you put across earlier about control, aggressive, shouting, etc., without being a hypocrite? You say, you know, it would be nice if we could work a bit better because we all struggle with that. But actually, you put in the other camp the problem. It's the older plank in the eye, isn't it? So it's putting it under the camp rather than understanding that humanly we do struggle with control, aggression, and communication.
I just want to state that I think me and this brother are working to two different narratives, because Christ said, "I have come not to bring peace to the world, but to bring war, to set fire to lay an axe to the root." He talks about that those
That's his final little
above him and not
throw in before he goes
that
home.
he's come to take father against son, son against father, and daughter against
Certainly
mother.
is.
The point of the Christian faith is that it does divide, and I am not interested in any kind of multicultural get along.
But you're broadening the argument that I'm saying. I'm saying that you can be
You quoted my scripture, right? You misquoted my scripture.
Okay.
Because Christ
thought you were going
is
home.
teaching his disciples that you take out the plank from your own eye before trying to take out the speck from your brother.
Yeah.
This is how Christians conduct themselves within the community. That is what we do to one another. What that doesn't mean is that we have to follow some soppy kind of spirituality where we can't call out injustice for what it is, or stand up for our own community, our own people, or our own belief system.
That's I think that's blurring the lines. I think within this issue that you spoke earlier is that you were talking about another group whilst doing the same things that you're talking about.
Wait, in one second. I am calling out the fact that for 1400 years...
No, that wasn't what you were saying.
So be more specific.
You said I have had bad experiences in Speaker's Corner.
Yes.
People have been shouting right in my face and in my ear. They've pushed me and threatened me, and they've said abusive things about me. And what I said in response to that is that actually I've seen you do 5 out of 6 of those items
Okay,
today.
so let me reply to that, because as is demonstrated here, I am more than capable of having a calm conversation. If you look at Soko films and you watch the videos, you will see a consistent pattern. I start off having a calm conversation, then usually someone from the Dawa team comes along, starts screaming and shouting, starts ranting and raving, starts getting really aggressive, and I simply stand up for myself.
That's war.
I have no problem with war.
I know you
I am not a
quite-
pacifist.
I know you have no problem with killing.
Are you a pacifist out of interest?
I know
you a pacifist?
It's killing
war
now.
is killing, right? You've got no problem with killing when you can justify it.
Oh,
Is that no? Is that correct?
If it's justified, yes.
Yes, with it's justified. Except
Do you
that
not?
that you can also say when you discuss with a woman about or somebody about abortion that there is absolutely no justification to kill.
That's correct.
And there's a bit of a conflict in those things.
So I mean, let me just ask you a question. Are you a pacifist?
I don't think that I could be fully defined as a pacifist.
So to call me out for
But
not
it doesn't
being,
mean I justify war.
So for
Kind
if
of
you are
ever,
not a pacifist,
Huh?
if you are not a pacifist,
There's a continuum.
if you're not
You're pretty
a
far up
pacifist,
the one end from the sounds of it.
Like, I mean, it strikes me that I'm not, basically, I'm just not interested in your get along hippie commune narrative. Like, I don't care. I do not care if the Christian faith offends you, or being a disciple of Christ offends you. If following Christ means that we all get along, brilliant. I'm all for that. Blessed are the peacemakers.
And the cheesemakers.
No, the peacemakers. but if being a disciple of Christ means conflict, then fine. I'm good for that too. Like, I just want to follow Christ. And I hope that it means peace. And I would work for peace. But I'm not frightened if it doesn't. What I am frightened of is that on Judgment Day I will come before my Lord, and my Lord will say to me, "You unfaithful servant." That is what I'm afraid of. I want to be able to stand before my Lord, and my Lord say to me, "You good and faithful servant."
And the faith is to love God and to love your neighbour as you do yourself.
Are you a Christian?
That's the faith. No, I'm not a Christian.
Right, because you speak with these, you keep trying to characterise my Christian faith as if it should fit into your kind of political narrative.
Not really. I'm utilising common Christian
Exactly,
kind of saying.
and that's the problem with common, mate, is it's all too common. You know, common is like.
It's also a quote from the Bible.
Yeah,
isn't it?
opinions are like belly buttons.
But it's a quote from the
Everyone's got
Bible.
one, but they
What?
don't
In or out?
like
Your
water.
synthesis of it is going
And
to be
some are
different
in
from
and
the
some are
next
out.
person.
No, well, actually, no, because there is a historical way that the Christian faith has understood itself. And if you're as rooted and approximating yourself as close to that historical faith as possible, then it is not about your personal opinion. I hope in my whole life that I express nothing new in terms of Christian doctrine. I only want to re-express all that is Christian doctrine. I hope that in all my Christian life, I never express a new morality, that I only re-express the old Christian morality. The problem with the kind of narrative that you seem to be following is you want Christianity to fit in your box to work for your political agenda. And I do not care about your political agenda. I want to destroy your political agenda.
I don't.
I want my
Bob
faith.
the Destroyer.
But you're saying that I'm putting words
not
into your
building
mouth.
anymore, we're
I now have a political agenda.
Because you're trying
That
to,
needs to be
you're
destroyed by
trying-
Bob.
You're trying to define for me what my faith should be, and that can only be
No, I
because it
did
suits
not.
yours.
I said a quote-ish, a rough quote from the Bible. I wasn't defining you. I was questioning what you're saying against
So-
this quote. That's not defining yours.
So let's look at
whereas
it.
I believe that you're
Let's
trying to
look at
define mine.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Yeah, sorry. It's hard to see with the lights.
Yeah,
If you get
no
in your
worries.
eyes, you can't see.
I've struggled with many of them.
So in answer to the question, Christians are called to love God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength, to love our neighbours as ourselves,
That's what I
to
said.
love
isn't it?
our brothers and sisters in Christ, to love our enemies, to love our mother and father. It's an ethic of love. But as you know, a man of your experienced years, there are sometimes points at which two loves can conflict with one another. That you can't love two opposing things, and so you have to arrange that love in a value system. And so that value system, according to the faith, is God first, your brothers and sisters second, your neighbour third, your enemies fourth. Your family. Well, your family can fit anywhere within the spectrum.
They can be your enemy as well.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why they.
What
they
about
can
your mother?
Move, they can move up and down. They can move up and down, and then your enemies last. So if I can bless the Dawah team, as I have done, I've bought them books, I've given them books, I've tried to show them love. I will do so. But if ever the love of the Dawah team opposes loving my brothers and sisters, then I will choose to love my brothers and sisters and oppose the Dawah team. So love is not kind of some soppy, gushy kind of, oh, let's all get along in a hippie commune. It can sometimes be hard and sometimes be soft,
Well,
depending on the
that's
circumstances.
within your worldview.
That's the Christian worldview.
Well, I would say that would be within your worldview.
It's the Christian worldview.
If
you're gonna
you can
dispute
broaden
that-
the whole of
So
Christian.
bring your
Christian world.
evidence. If you want to dispute that, where's your
Well,
evidence?
okay, my dispute of that statement is very broad to say that that's the whole Christian worldview.
But what is your evidence I'm wrong?
Well, I haven't got all the evidence because that's like proving
Do you have
there's something.
any evidence?
I would say that I would have met a Christian who had an opposing view. So does that mean that that's not all Christians then?
No. It would say that opinions are like belly buttons; they don't count for much water.
Okay, so
If
we're
I
just talking
met
about
said-
opinions.
if
But anyway, the point
we're
that I was
talking
trying
about
to...
history. This has been
I-
put into
no,
practice.
you were talking about a hierarchy of love.
Yes, absolutely. You find me a Christian that says that your love of God should be secondary to anything else.
Well, that wasn't the hierarchy that was being questioned. Really,
No, that
was
is
it?
exactly the
It
hierarchy.
was
I
about
said the love of God was
enemies, the
first.
family.
I said the love of God
Yeah,
was
yeah,
first.
yeah.
So now find me a Christian who would dispute
No, but
that.
I was disputing the other hierarchy.
All right,
the
so
secondary
I'm right.
hierarchy.
I am historically right about the first one.
I think it's clear that would be, but whether I would also imagine there will be some Christians who actually I do know who say, yeah, I'm a Christian, but I don't believe in God. So that anyway,
They're not
this
Christians.
is just exactly.
not
But they're self-described.
Who cares what they
but no,
describe
okay, but this
themselves
is by
as?
the by because
There are men who describe themselves as women.
because the other issue that I wanted to make, which I think is a bit more important point, is about what is actually defined as love. And I think that a lot of the way that you talk about the Dawa team is, in a sense, judgment. And I think that actually when we understand our judgment, that is when we actually understand passion and love.
So let's just deal with that, because there is again this kind of soppy do-gooder attitude that says, oh no.
I wonder if there's a way that you could describe it without that first bit that you start, the soppy do-gooder.
Okay, the do-gooder. There is a do-gooder attitude. Does that meet your criterion? So there is a do-gooder.
Actually, no.
I made Steve laugh. That's great.
Oh, you often make me laugh.
That's great. I'm sure I do. So my point to you is, right? The problem with that.
I don't mind if you call me soppy.
Sorry, that's so good. So the soppy do-gooder. The problem with the soppy do-gooder attitude is that it doesn't understand the difference between judgment and discernment. Okay. So in the Christian faith there is a difference. We are called not to judge because it is not our responsibility to judge. God will be your judge, God will be Steve's judge, God will be my judge. Okay? But I can still discern. If you are an asshole, I can discern that. Yeah? And there is nothing wrong with identifying an asshole for what he is. So if a thug is coming here behaving like a thug, I can call them a thug. And I can discern that they are a thug by them being a thug. And there is no judgment in me discerning that.
I think there is.
Or calling it out. So what you're trying to say is we can never make. Are you saying that we can't make any moral judgments?
I think I'm saying play the ball, not the man.
Are you saying that we can't make
I
moral
just said what I was
judgments?
saying.
Play the ball, not the man.
Yeah.
So
So you're saying that I call them out for being a thug.
Yeah.
Actually, they're a human being with some thuggish behaviour.
So are you saying that we shouldn't oppose the thuggish behaviour?
I'm saying that we shouldn't label people in broad universal
That is
terms.
a soppy position.
Did you not
That
at
is
the
a definite
beginning?
soppy
Yeah,
position.
sorry. Let's be clear. At the beginning, did you not label me a hypocrite?
I said that what you were saying was hypocritical.
Ah, right. Okay.
I'm not sure if you did precisely like that.
I mean,
but
I
anyway.
honestly cannot remember whether he called me a hypocrite or just said I was.
No, he called you a hypocrite.
Did he?
Did I, or did I say, isn't that, aren't you being
No, I
a
think you
Well,
actually said the
everyone
words,
can
"You are a
rewind the
hypocrite."
tape and find out.
But I did also say that I also am a hypocrite, as is everyone.
Okay, so my point to you is that in terms of dealing with this kind of thuggish mentality, yeah, right, this your kind of soppy attitude will not solve anything. You will just be bullied, and by your position that you're taking up, you are going to drag everyone down with you. So because you want to be a wimp and you want everyone else to be a wimp, you're saying that we all need to get bullied because you don't like the confrontation that comes about by standing up against the bully.
No, actually, I would disagree with that, and I'd say it's not about standing up to things that are attacking you, but actually it's a kind of instigating a level of antipathy towards groups of people by giving broad terms to those people. So when you're here, It's the same as self-defense, isn't it? So if somebody's attacking you in legal terms, you can defend yourself against them.
Do you agree
but you can't go chasing them and then kind of hitting them afterwards. The people that you're talking about, they're not even here, so you're not defending yourself. You're not being pressed by them. You're just talking about them. You have a narrative about them.
Except that they are also broadcasting a narrative about us.
I know, and
So
that's war, isn't it? That's war. Do it more.
Again, I have no problem with war. In terms of,
But they're not here now. But they have. They're not here right now. But obviously, when Bob's speaking, they are around him and doing
Many times.
whatever they do. But they're not here right now to accost him or
And
whatever.
my argument, which Bob
Can I
disagrees, is
can I
that
finish
we're
my
all
point
doing the
before you
same sort of
interrupt me?
thing.
Can I just finish my point? My point is that right now there will have been Dawa channels broadcasting a narrative about Christians and about the Christian faith. Okay? Now please know that I am at least more courteous to Muslims because I argue against the Dawa team. I make a distinction between Muslims as a whole and these Dawarists who are coming here and libeling Christians as confused about the Trinity and not knowing their faith. And, I am more courteous than
But they would say that you libel them.
And I would
That's-
also
the
say
libel's
that
not the word.
that
You're
you.
not addressing what I've said.
I would also say that you accuse people of being in the Dawa team, whether you know them or not.
Well, I would suggest that if I recognise a face as someone who comes a lot, then
Then they're in that team.
yes. Yes, they broadcast themselves having meals together. We know they work together. We know they're teamed up in cameras. I think that is by every rational definition a team.
They are an organised group.
Well,
There is no
I
doubt.
don't know about.
I think
don't-
all
I
that's
think-
happening here
I
is that
think-
Bob has a very strong position of how he wants to correlate his. Bob has a very strong position on how he correlates his Christian thesis towards Muslims or whatever, and you're coming across as a bit more gentle, telling Bob that he shouldn't speak the way he does. The fact he's passionate and embraces his God and wants to speak the way he does, you can't actually stop him from doing that. But then maybe he's not correlating properly with your more liberal. So I think you both somehow need to correlate together. But maybe now I'm being woolly and sort
I
of
think
liberalised.
my danger, the danger that I see in your position is that you carve a space for Salafist thuggism. That's what you do. You are a soft apologist. You're one second. You're by the position that you take. Please note, I'm critiquing your position.
Yeah.
By the position that you take, you make yourself a useful idiot to Salafists. That's what you've become. And I don't
Say
want
what
to
you think,
follow
Bob.
your folly. Because you're a danger, your attitudes are a danger. If we embrace your attitudes, we might as well just throw in the towel and all take shahada.
Well, I think
Take your attitude.
I think when you're in a kind of Christian versus Muslim theological war, then I can understand why you might think I'm letting the side down.
Oh, you're not on my side.
I know, I'm not on your side. I'm not on either side.
Only Christians are on my side.
I know,
And I'm
not
only on the
your
side of the
Yeah.
Christians.
So I'm not doing anything that kind of allows or
But you do
also
because
something.
you
Because I
want
would
to.
also say the same to.
But you want to propose a narrative that makes space for the Salafists. It's kind of a utopian vision of society. Oh, if we could only just get along. The reality of human sin is that your utopian vision is a daydream. And the quicker you let go of your daydream, the better.
Well, I would disagree. I would say
That there's no reality of sin.
How would you summarise your position?
I would say that actually, when we're in conflict in ourselves, and that's the conflict that we have to resolve first before we start kind of trying to solve the world's problems.
Well, I think if everyone waited to do that before they tackled the world's problems, nothing would get done.
And I think that
Because-
if everyone was doing it, then there wouldn't be the world's problem.
No,
But you have to
because-
wait a long time because
Yes.
nobody can be perfect,
No one
can
can
they?
be perfect.
Nobody can be 100%
The
perfect in
one
themselves.
second.
So how are you going to wait to be absolutely 100% perfect in yourself
Exactly.
to then save
Exactly.
everybody else? You know?
And I would say
Can I-
things
can I-
are
Can I
100%
just,
perfect.
right, the reality is, as Christians, we do strive for perfection. Be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. But we also know as Christians that if you wait to be perfect, you will do nothing. So as Christians, we are called to work from where we are and to use our gifts and abilities for the advancement of the kingdom of God. Now, you have framed that consistently through our discussion with the language of war, all right? And I've just rolled with it. But
No, you haven't rolled it. You said I'm not against war. You said.
Yeah, exactly. But you framed it as Islam v Christianity. You've used the term war. I have consistently, because there are some times where I get ahead of myself and I speak wrong. But if you look
okay,
at,
you're figuring.
yeah, of course I am. By Christ, not by you. But like, in terms of, in terms of what my whole experiment here is to.
Is this an experiment?
It's a descendant. Is to critique the ideology. Right? And I have tried, though sometimes I accept that I failed, to make a distinction between Muslims as a general population, Islamists and Daoists. Yeah? But I am not embarrassed to call out Islamists for what they are, or Daoists for what they
liberals.
are, or liberals for what they are, because frankly, you know, if we were all like you, not only would, I mean, here you are tackling the world's problems, right? I mean, you're talking to me about my problem. Have you sorted all your problems out?
I don't really have any problems.
Wow.
Oh wow, you're a
perfect.
perfectionist.
No.
All right, hold on. Now, didn't your logic be sort yourself out before you sort out the problems of the world? So what are you doing here?
Now that you're perfect.
Having fun.
Having fun.
Can I have a question? 'Cause this is
Yes.
No one's
in a
interested.
video, I think about 2 or 3 weeks ago, you said that Christians should take back Constantinople. I think.
Yes. Constantinople belongs to the Christians. Are those Greeks Orthodox? Yeah. So are we talking about Christians? Right then.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know where to go from here. Okay. What other cities do you want? Do you want like Damascus?
All of North Africa, the Middle East, Turkey, Greater Armenia.
Whoa, did you say Middle East?
Yeah, most of the Middle East. Not all of it.
Alright. So like, is it going to be no Muslims allowed or just like, hey, Christians are allowed to
Dude, we're talking fantasy. This is not going to happen.
Alright, yeah, it's just a little bit.
It is just to point out the fact. The reason why I said that is to point out the fact that those are Christian lands taken by force. It's never going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love it to, if through a legal political system, you know, like Israel was established, you know, land was carved out of the Middle East and given to the Jewish people. If something could happen like that for the Christians in the Middle East, I'd be all in favour. And including, that's Greater Armenia. Remember, Muslims are occupying northern Cyprus right now. They're occupying southern Kosovo, southern Serbia right now. You know, Christians are being persecuted right now, and the liberal establishment doesn't want to do anything about it. You know, Hagia Sophia is a Christian church that is being desecrated right now. Yeah, and the world wants to pretend, and the church, because of our useless leaders, is silent about all of these things.
And we're told that Asia Bibi would not be given asylum by the British government because they were worried about what would happen in Britain if she came here.
What they've said. Now, what does that tell you about what the liberal establishment? They accuse
whatever you
people,
want to call them,
yeah,
that's the
what they accuse people of Islamophobia. Is that not a form of Islamophobia? I am afraid of what? Violence towards one individual, riots on the street. What are their security concerns, and who are their security concerns about? You know.
shocking.
So, are we all done? You got anything more to say? Do good.
No. You know, I can't help it.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a pleasure
Shoot me.
speaking to you. You look after yourself.
Take care.
Godspeed. Steve, as always, mate.
See you on Thursday?
Oh yeah, the thing.
Yeah.
I will try to.
There's the secret. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
We're having a Freemason.
He's going to try and tackle his sexuality, isn't he?
I'm not going to respond to that. I'm not gonna respond.
Sorry.
It's all
Not
right.
going to let you forget that.
Anyway, God bless. Have a lovely night, guys. See you in maybe a week. Peace.
Yeah, well, well, it's not what I... Yeah, I'm going to lay down the law. It won't be me. Well, I'm going to... I even bring a book round.
Steve.
What? Yeah, it's pretty disgusting, isn't it? And apparently...
Well, what do you believe? What's the
Who?
How's it crack?
Rick James. Who's Rick James? It is said that he was. It has been just said that Mo was just frustrated that she turned him down. So maybe that's what it was all about. But either way, it's disgusting. And
Yeah, what do you think?
who? Who's Simon? Who's Simon? But apparently the police's reaction was, oh, well, if he does it again, or if he does something again, he'll get a warning, or he might get a ban.
Do you think that's because?
So you can throw something in someone's face, and that's not significant enough to...
Or do you think that's because he's Muslim?
Say again?
Do you think that's because he's Muslim?
You know?
You know what I find,
Maybe.
What I find weird.
Say again?
What I find weird is, you know, earlier we were talking about the Tommy Robinson supporters who pulled someone off the ladder.
Yeah.
You were very specific that it was some of them.
Well, on that precise point, clearly it was some of them. It wasn't all of them. They couldn't have reached it.
Absolutely. But when it comes to Islam, you pick out more as an example.
But that's the problem, isn't it? The vocal Muslims that come to Speaker's Corner are very, very bad representatives of humankind, aren't they? The vocal ones. I'm not talking about the quiet ones in the background.
So therefore, when it comes to more, you should say some of it. Like,
I always try to be careful that whatever I say, I never say all Muslims. I don't think I've ever said that. I'm very conscious of not ever saying that, because it's not all Muslims, self-evidently. People like to make out that I do, but I never, ever do.
I mean, frankly, I'm not on either side.
But you know, the Islamic faith has to sort out their PR, their representatives, because the ones that represent the faith at the Speaker's Corner are diabolical. You know, thuggery, low IQ, ignorance, hate. I mean, there are some of them that clearly are a little bit more intellectual than others, but even those ones don't seem to speak out and deal with the others, with the thuggery, with the idiots. They go very, very quiet, which is that because this Muslim thing about you never criticise your Muslim brother publicly, whatever they do. Well, they need to ditch that rule because it's not helping them at all.
Question: did Andrew Chadwick used to call me?
Yes.
No.
Yeah, he did. He did. About 2014, 15, 12.
What, just once or twice? Or
He's come here, about while we're there by then. He's come out of jail now. He's come out of jail now. He's got put away.
Because I would have been coming here though, and I never saw him. But...
Yeah, he's a lawyer, you know, Andrew Chowdhury.
Yeah, he used to do street dawah, but I didn't think he ever physically came to
He came here
school.
once at least. I don't know what year it was.
Okay.
He's out there, by the way.
We know it. Camden.
So if you could set the rules,
If I could what?
if you could set the rules,
If I could set the rules, yes. About what?
about Speaker's Corner,
Speaker's Corner,
how
right.
we can improve it, what would you do?
Well, I think like the last person that gave an interview to Leon, that the police have to be much more active in dishing out exclusion orders. They should have a much lower tolerance of misbehaviour here, i.e. physical violence, physical, threats of physical violence or actual physical violence.
Has that actually happened where
So apparently last week when Joseph Cohen was doing their moment there, apparently someone said, apparently it's even on recording, that someone's head was going to be cut. And that person, as far as we know, is still walking the street. Yes, but that's the precise sort of thing. What I said, actual physical violence or direct threats for physical violence. The police need to start having a zero tolerance, and those people should be immediately excluded.
Hasn't that already been done?
Well, it's not zero tolerance, like the example we've just given of today. That person has now not been excluded. Modine.
I mean, to be
And clearly
fair,
throwing a drink in someone's face is a physical attack.
Decapitated in Speaker's Corner?
None. But people that regularly coming here have done it, and they've had counter-terrorism knocking on their door because of it.
should happen for someone throwing a drink in someone's face?
They should be excluded.
Has
from
it
it. It's
It's
been reported, yeah, it has. That's why I know.
she report
She reported it.
He's infatuated
I have a
with
question. I have a question.
I'm not. It doesn't matter. That was just today's example of an assault.
Do you actually know what happened? Like,
Oh, I mean,
do you actually know what happened? Like, what was
It's
the-
on video.
was
It's on
what the-
video.
was
I've
the-
tweeted the video.
Was the-
Mr. Rack's videoed
In
it.
her face.
Yeah. He had like a squirt. It was like a squirty bottle of cloudy lemonade or something, and he was going like that. So look. It'll be on Mr. Rax's channel. I've tweeted it. It's publicly available. And then what he did, he ran over to a group of Muslims over there and said, "Oh, she's just insulted the Prophet. She's just insulted the Prophet." He didn't actually, for once, maybe it's because it's who he is, didn't get any reaction from them. He then scarpered out the park and hasn't returned, as far as I'm aware.
Wow.
So he knew he'd done wrong.
Yeah, that's too far.
So, but you know, there are a lot worse examples of physical violence. Leon. Do you mean what did Sophia say?
yeah.
What did she say? What that
Yeah, how did
instigated?
it happen? Yeah, what?
I'll take Leon.
Look at the video. It's all
Okay,
on the
fine.
video. I can't remember the direct thing, but it's from start to finish. It's all clear and it's really clear video. So there's no.
But isn't there another chap, Omar, that was banned?
Yeah.
Well, he was the one that
So
had
it-
counter-terrorism
yeah, so-
knocking on his
Jesus
door because he
Christ.
threatened to
So it-
behead
so
Danny
it's
Tomo.
Danny Tomo or Jamie Goddard.
So
I
it
think
is
it's Jamie
happening,
Goddard.
right? So
Sorry?
it is happening, right? Where people are getting banned.
Yeah, there are examples of it. But your question to me was what?
Abdul
if I
Hamid.
was- if I was
Abdul
sa-
Hamid.
Yeah, if I was, but he was back here a few weeks ago. Your question to me was what would I do if I was in
That guy don't
charge?
take
And
rubbish.
one big example I'd give was a much lower tolerance of any of this stuff. Zero tolerance. Because of the reality of what's happened here. You have to be. But, you know, that's going to take a lot of police resources. But hopefully it wouldn't be needed for very long because...
There wasn't. I've only coming up to 2 hours.
What if we introduced a law where speakers going to self-govern itself, where if there was a majority vote? Yeah.
Well, nothing does that. That's why we have law enforcement agencies. How can it? I mean, it does. I mean, that is one good thing I have to say about Speaker's Corner. Often it does self-police itself. And you see people quickly pulling people apart and dealing with it. And often when things kick off, it resolves itself quite quickly without the police. So it does self-police itself already, and that's
There's
good.
been a few conversations I've overheard over the past couple of weeks that something's going to happen really bad.
Someone will be stabbed
I
or
think so.
something.
Eventually,
Well,
at the
There's
rate.
been in the past.
at the
There's been
rate that-
years ago.
Oh, really?
Stabbing. Yeah, about 2 years ago. Negate their Big Bros talks about it. Big Bro took.
Someone, I'll
Someone
tell
was
you,
stabbed?
someone
Yeah, there
was
was
stabbed
a year and a half
outside
ago.
the Wetherspoons, when there was a Wetherspoons at the bottom of Edgware Road.
How far back is that?
That's outside Wetherspoons, Steve.
Yeah, I know. It was in the vicinity.
That's a fair
What year was
So
this?
yeah,
Recent.
You get stabbed outside Wetherspoons because everyone's fucking drunk.
7 years ago.
And the person used to come here.
They had been here that day.
Steve, we know you've got the exclusive. What's happening at the end of November speakers?
I don't know the detail. I do not know the detail.
Details. We don't need the details.
What's
just the
happening?
broad strokes.
There's
What's happening?
the police, and I think in the Royal Park, for
There's a
once,
meeting on
for once
Thursday.
there's a meeting on Thursday. For once they're working together. They're meeting.
You want
Oh,
again?
wow,
They're
you're going to the
meeting
meeting?
because they asked. There's a meeting which I think the police are going to discuss their proposals. Now, whether there'll be proposals or whether they'll be, this is what we're going to do, guys, like it or lump it, I don't know.
Is that the meeting Bob was asking you to go?
Who was invited to this meeting?
Anyone can. I've heard
Leon
of
was
people.
invited. Respect was invited. Maku was invited. I think Raven's been invited. So that's some people in gang, but there's been a broad range of
Why
people
wasn't
that
I
have been
invited?
invited. Muslims, Christians, gang, atheists.
Where is the meeting held?
Well, it's not an open meeting, so I can't.
Oh,
Steve, what about the agnostics? Were they invited?
What about the cheesemakers? Were they invited?
They never get their
So basically,
Anyone in Wetherspoons was invited?
6, 7 years ago.
so as I say, I don't know whether they're going to be sharing suggestions with us and what the
There's
views,
about
or
7
whether
years
it's just going to be this is what's
Are
happening.
you going?
but you're invited, right?
Yeah. So we'll see. So this time next week,
You'll find out the
which
lowdown.
box am I in?
Are you an atheist?
I am.
So at least we can find atheists.
Indeed.
representing.
Yeah, I think there'll be one or two of us. So we wait to hear, but at the end of the day, you know, they've had to put a lot of resources into this place. They can't afford that, you know, they're completely under-resourced. They can't afford to keep sending scores and scores of people to Police Speaker's Corner, so they have to do some things. And I wonder whether some of the things they're going to do, we might not like. We might not think they're good.
Such as?
Well, it's really, really extremely weird. How much time do people call police in Speaker's Corner to come down?
No, I'm talking about whether they're called or not. There have been some weeks in recent months where there's been schools of them.
I know.
We had 4 police officers there a few weeks ago. There wasn't specific protest.
It was a DFLA thing.
Who's going to come down to make their protest on freedom of speech or to call people niggers in Speaker's
Oh,
Corner?
who's done that? Apart from Tarrant, who's used that word. Who else has
People are
done
going
that?
to do that. Yeah, but they come down to stand with them.
Who?
Stand up for the DFLA and all them sort of guys.
What, are you saying the DFLA have come here and used that word?
No, but they're too smart to do that. They'll stand beside someone that will do that, rather than...
So your issue is people that might be thinking it inside their head but don't say it? How do you know they're thinking it inside their head?
I don't know where anyone's
I just think the motivation is unknown.
Yeah, I'm not saying what anyone's thinking.
Go back to the point that I made numerous times today. The chronology of violence and trouble and intimidation at this corner is not because the DFLA have come.
But do you
Or
remember
anyone of that
Do you
ilk.
remember when Tommy Robinson was here?
Yes,
His
but
supporters
Sarah
threw
had
a punch.
Sarah was issued an Osmond warning way before that happened.
No, but
the
when
violence and the problems and the thuggery
been 2
here
years.
completely predate anyone of that sort of ilk
2
coming.
years.
They have come here in reaction to all that.
Yeah, but
increase
they're
in
not good
violence. Is that
representation.
not-
They are
come in-
not good
They never
representation
came in
of
to
good
defend
behaviours,
Sarah's
right? You agree?
to talk about Prophet Muhammad.
Say
Come
again?
on. They never came in to defend Sarah's right to talk about Prophet Muhammad.
No, because that was a one individual death threat. It wasn't an en masse problem of thuggery. It was one example of it. It was one of the earlier examples.
But
of
you
it.
agree they're not good representation of good behaviours, right?
Who?
Like most of his supporters.
Most of whose supporters?
Tommy Robinson supporters.
I completely disagree with that point.
I mean, a few of them.
Most
he
of-
punches the
most of
videos
Tommy-
on YouTube, and one of them was arrested. He punched
One,
like
the biggest problem that Tommy Robinson had when he was a leader of the EDL is, yes, that sort of real racist, real far right, real Nazis wanted to take over the
During the
EDL,
time that they hit
and
the
he
park.
spent his entire leadership of the EDL fighting to keep that sort of people out. So
narrative.
yes, those sorts of people will always be attracted to this sort of subject, but it does not make this subject racist because it attracts some people
Okay,
who are racist.
You said there could be a couple of options on Thursday, a couple of suggestions, like you.
Is anybody open to that meeting?
Well,
No, it's a closed
there's a
meeting.
limit to the numbers, and,
Closed meeting.
and
Just
it's not an open meeting
what do you
that
think,
anyone can
What do you
turn
think
up.
could be some of the suggestions made?
I mean, there's been talk, and I don't know whether any of this will
Yeah,
be
yeah,
real. That, you know, they might, I don't.
No.
But they might stop filming. I don't know how
No, that's
practically
bad,
they can do
man.
that. It might be that they
Hold on.
that they have plinths here, so there will be plinths provided for people to stand up upon. Yeah, it could be a WWE cage match with a ladder. Because part of the solution, which I absolutely think, is that we need to encourage more and more people to come here, generally, to speak
Yeah.
on a bigger range of topics.
So do I.
Like it used to be, to be honest. It wasn't
So
all
do I.
bloody religion.
So do
And
I.
it's great. I mean, they're complete nutcases in my view, but it's brilliant the fact that the flat earthers are coming. And that the vegans are coming. We need more people to come and speak on all
I
sides.
know.
Whether they're left-wingers, whether they're right-wingers, whether they're vegans, it doesn't matter.
Vegans,
We need more
whatever.
people. And the other thing, you know, this used to be a
True,
real
get
tourist
fed up with
attraction.
this.
And you used to get families coming with their kids coming. Who wants to bring their kids in now when there's all this violence and intimidation? Women is the other thing. You know, women are being sexually assaulted here.
Really?
Yes.
In the crowds. I'm not,
Yes. Yes,
Not
they're
naming
being
names.
groped.
What?
Hatun was about a month ago.
I
weren't there. You know, there's all these boys. They
Did she
just
say
go.
that?
I'm
She
not saying
corroborates
names.
that? Did she corroborate that, yeah?
I heard online.
Go to medium.com and I've written
Medium.com?
medium.
Yeah, some girls get like, you know when it's really packed,
Search
some boy
Speakers
just walk
Corner.
past and give it a
I've
squeeze
done
like
loads
that.
of articles on there, but I've done one following an interview with her. I was shocked. And other people have come up to me since that article. And
Like when there's crowds,
given
there'll
me
someone
other
pretend to get his
examples
bag and go like that, and you never see him again.
Tits grab.
No,
Bums
that's hard
grab.
to
In
get.
Speaker's Corner.
That's hard
In
to get to
Speaker's
someone's
Corner.
thing. But the behind, you can say you barged into them and all that.
And
stuff.
as I say, since I put that article up,
I've
other
seen
people
that.
have come up to me and told me other examples. So, you know, well, I know it's always been a bit male-dominated here, but you know, what woman is going to want to come here if that's the sort of crap that goes on as well?
That's horrible.
We've got to open up this place to more people, families,
I want
women,
different
everyone.
people, I
It
know.
should be a safe place for people to come, a safe space. I think I'd say that.
Oh no, don't start safe spaces. You never be able to say anything.
But all I mean by that is, i.e., without risk of bloody violence and threats of violence or being sexually assaulted.
I showed you in the safe space, Steve.
I don't know how someone could get to someone's breast though.
Did she describe like a
I don't know.
particular
The back you can, yeah.
I don't know. I'd never heard her say that.
certain...
It was about 4 or 5 weeks
But
ago.
the other one-
The
It was online.
The
It was
reason I
online.
get nervous about that is because it is had to...
And her husband's here, you know
The
that
other
as
thing
well.
is, she said,
What's his name?
It's
the
that
more
Somalian
intelligent,
type of guy.
mature
They're always together.
members
Yeah.
of that group.
Her voice is annoying.
Denied it, pushed it away.
She's listening to this.
Pardon?
She's
So
listening to
therefore,
this.
in my view, they're kind of almost as
She doesn't know his face, is it? She's
She's
that small, like kind of
She's a
lazy.
Christian preacher,
She's
got quite a
small.
screechy voice. That's the one. But she's a lovely, speaking to her one-on-one.
Why has she,
really
I don't
nice.
get it. Why hasn't she complained?
It's about 5 or 6 weeks ago.
This isn't meant to be mocking, but her response is to pray for them.
Oh, please.
Whoever
come on.
that person
That
was.
doesn't make any sense. She's more than happy at the slight of touches to go and call the.
You would have thought so, but that's
I
the
don't know.
point.
I've seen it.
I know, but
I've actually seen.
but
Say,
I've had-
you are fighting with me. I'm going to go to tell the police. So it's a bit inconsistent.
I would have no qualms in doing that, but I know a lot of people say, oh, you know, you're a snitch, blah, blah, blah. Fuck it. If you're doing anything that's remotely wrong or illegal, straight to the police. And everyone should do that.
Have you done that when you've seen people smoke cannabis?
What do you think? What do you think?
alone, right?
It does smell nice. It does smell nice. Do you know
Hypocrisy, hypocrisy.
Hypocrite.
Smells nice.
Yeah, you got it. Go on, I dare you. Why are you putting it? Yeah, tell it to
Do you know what? I was here early. I was here at 11:30. Someone was smoking a joint next to me at 11:30. It's
breakfast for some people.
I guess so.
Big deal.
But do you know what?
Don't
It's a
tell
Muslim that was
Hassan
doing it.
about
A
it.
Muslim that makes himself.
For free.
I didn't realise it was him at the time.
Taking a
Someone
break
told me
off or something. You have to. So was Shamsi.
So is
I've
his
seen him
weed
for 5
Seen
weeks.
him.
Wow.
Too cold, maybe it's too cold for him.
And that, what's that guy's name? Taweed. He's gone for. I haven't
Dick
seen
Dick. Don't call him that. We call him Dick.
Well, you know what did Tan say? What did Tan say?
Taweed. I haven't seen him.
Tan said they went on holiday
Pardon?
together.
Hello there. I didn't see you there. You want to come this side of the camera?
I was going to say that.
You've been standing there for a while.
It's like 2 minutes.
Okay.
I heard that someone actually told me once that I was speaking to him about the weed issue in Islam and stuff like that, and he was saying that because we were so ignorant of what it was.
Come this
before,
way, we can hear you.
Because we were so ignorant about what it was before. Obviously, I don't agree with this argument, but he said because of how it was before and what we knew about it before and how little we knew about it before, it was haram, like completely. However, now we know that it has, for example, CBD, THC. You can treat cancer patients with it, etc., with the CBD part. I think they claim that the THC part was haram, so I'm not too sure.
So it's okay for medicinal purposes?
I don't know. That's the thing, but that's what he tried to say.
What does the Quran say on this subject?
No comment.
Question.
What does it say? What does it say? What does it say? Doesn't say anything, does it?
I think
Doesn't say anything, does
the
it?
position on drugs is that anything that alters the chemistry of your body and that can have you out of your senses is haram. Therefore,
But not tobacco. Smoking.
I think that harms your body too, and not in the same way as like changing your.
What, arseholes or? I think arsehole cracks are definitely haram. Although they're not, because you know the very funny thing, and I have to say this because it was so fucking funny. I often get, even though I'm not gay, I often get a lot of homophobia here
Really?
from Muslims. Did you not know? But there's one nasty, virulently homophobic twat who was having a real go at me last week or the week before, and then moved on to that subject, but then proceeded to ask me to bend over while he fucked me in the arse. Yeah, I'm the one that he was accusing of being gay. Very transphobic. Well, no, not not Punania, not Punania. So is it true that in Islam, if you're giving cock up someone's arse, you're not gay? But if you're taking cock up your arse, you are gay? Oh, I'm not embarrassing you now. But if it doesn't make you gay to fuck a man up the arse, how the fuck do you even get? How do you get erect in the first place if you're not gay?
We're very specific. We say batty man. A batty man is someone who is really in a bum hole.
But the bum hole that receives it isn't a batty man.
Yeah, that's both.
They're both bad. Well, that would be logical, wouldn't it? Yes, what's anal sex with a wife considered in Islam?
That's like when people say you're a batty man, Steve, because you probably do it with your wife. I don't know. I'm just asking. No. Okay, well, you're a batty man.
Anyway.
Have you thought about it?
I did it with a girlfriend.
Everyone's hiding behind the camera now. Steve, you're on your own.
What? Maybe we'll stand with that. Maybe not. Look at all of you hiding behind the camera while he exposes himself even more.
There's 20 people behind the camera.
It's all my fans. Any other questions before we all go home?
What happened to Ishmael Blagrove?
I mean, fuck tango.
Yeah, go on, man. That's done.
Not homophobic.
But Steve, during the time that you've
during the olden days,
during the time that you've attended Speakers Corner, are Muslims like the worst, like bottom
what compared with other groups?
The ones that you hate the most, like.
I have seen more misbehaviour from Muslims than I've seen from any other group.
Yeah.
The only other group that I've ever seen violence from, and this was only twice, is the Catholic Evidence Guild, where once, there's the Liverpool, they stand here occasionally. I had a green wooden plinth thing with a picture of Mary or Jesus or something.
I don't know them.
Once one of them jumped off the ladder and headbutted a homeless man and gave him a nosebleed. Or Diane. No, Diane never had. Oh, that's another interesting subject. So, Catholic Evidence Guild, I've seen physical violence from twice, which was quite interesting. In fact, the Liverpool guy who was here today, he's actually a lawyer, and he punched someone once.
Wow.
And it went to court. And if he'd been found guilty, his entire career would have been ended, but he got away with it.
How did he get off it?
I'm not sure how he got off.
Backhand and all that crap with it.
But I suppose if you're a lawyer, you know how.
Yeah, you had to bend up the rules.
But Diane, and people love me.
I love Diane. She was
people
hilarious.
that love to call me a racist clearly were not here 5-6 years ago, or however long ago when Diane was here, because Diane was an absolute and outright racist, and I used to spend more time arguing with her than I spent with anyone else. But it was before the days of everyone videoing everything, really.
That's quite
so
She passed away 2 years ago.
She hasn't been here for a while, so I guess.
What do you think?
happened.
Did she die, Diane? Did she die?
Well, she retired to Southend, I heard.
Okay.
And,
Somebody said she passed.
Also, what happened to Ishmael Blagrove? Why doesn't he come anymore?
I don't know. I don't have much time for him either.
Oh.
Ishmael was not the best. He was another thug. No, he wasn't. He had all the bloody cameras. How many cameras have we got around? He wasn't a nice individual. Oh, you're finally here. He was not a nice individual. He had a problem with women. I used to work with someone who had the pleasure of his experience. But then it went nasty. And the funny thing was, he phoned her employer to try to get her into trouble. To try and get her a job. He didn't know
Hello, mate. How you doing? You all right?
exactly who he was and what it was about. And he was trying to get her into trouble, trying to get her to
For that, I said, hey, how you doing?
stop with that. Nasty.
It's like, come on, I'm not that much of a fan. Come on.
And he'll probably sue me now for libel, because that's all. But it was true, so you'll have to disprove it.
You're right.
What did he do?
Beat that man back.
That guy from Sky News. and then this is straight after, like the day after when the president burned, and then he had a conversation with Sky News. And
there was a video with him in May 2012, Ishmael, when he punched up this racist guy like that.
How the BBC or something.
I'm helping out today, man. I'm another cameraman, man.
I don't know what's happened to him because he used to run Rice and Peas media video thingy, but it's disappeared. Do you know anything about Ishmael, Leon? What's he doing now?
Punched him up and boxed him up and boxed him up. And
Rice and Peas? Wasn't that the name of his company?
Oh, that's years ago. And then he separated it, then after he broke a hand because of it.
Broke his hand?
Is he an actual communist?
His punches hard.
Yeah. He boxed him up properly.
Who would you say, Steve?
It was this guy just turned up on some of them just come here just to bait people.
I mean, I don't agree with his position, but Hypocrisy is clearly the most educated, intelligent, intellectual, knows his stuff, probably more than anyone else. But I absolutely disagree with his political position. But
What is his political stance?
Marxism. So he usually stands. Well, yeah, he probably disagree with that, but he stands over there. You do know the guy. So he's a very good speaker. Martin Besserman used to be a funny speaker in his time. Martin Besserman.
Oh, what about Tony
Who would you say? Who are the best speakers that have come here over the time?
Blake Grove for me. I wish I didn't see. Yeah, you remember that guy? I love him. I love him.
Guys, what you're talking about the
Ishmael Blake Grove, yeah.
Whatever happened to the Master? Do you remember the Master?
No, I don't think I've seen him.
Black guy used to have loads of beads and used to shake his beads. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, you're a historian, man. You're a historian. Wow, so who's a good speaker currently?
Well, I said Hypocrisy knows his stuff. I don't agree with him, but he's a good speaker. He knows himself. He knows how to manage an audience.
I actually think, what's his name now? Is it Ben? What's the Christian guy? I'm about.
Bob the Builder. Bob the Builder.
I think he's a good. I think he's a good speaker, and he can conduct. He can tone the voice strong. He can project his voice.
But what
knowledge as well is very good.
But what has changed there? People used to all just stand on a ladder and speak, and then you'd have a crowd round them. That has now changed.
Someone could just not like it and cause some serious damage.
There's been that.
When you fall on your head here, it's concrete.
But I mean,
so on the Muslim side, who would you say are the best?
I say, personally,
Mohammed Hijab, best talker.
No, I say
think
Shams.
he's great.
Shams.
I like Hijab.
He's very sincere. I think Mohammed Hijab
he's
smart.
Yeah,
he's good. I feel a little bit of a showman at times.
I tell you why I like Hijab,
Showman,
because Mohammed Hijab can deal with all sorts of subjects, daily life subjects, and he knows the other kind of isms, issues and stuff like that, whereas Shams is more Islam.
Yeah.
So I think Hijab, he can deal with all sorts of, and bring it into what he wants to,
compare it.
He's fantastic, fantastic as a Muslim speaker.
From the Muslim side, I say Shams in
Well, that should be a standard when we speak. We should try to avoid arguments. I think that should be. If you're trying to teach or learn, arguments
and avoid emotions when you're debating.
That's a big thing, isn't it?
That's one.
And not get personal.
If you've got a serious, you've got a serious issue you're putting across, then you need to leave all that emotional stuff. But if you come here for something different, you can argue, fine, have a laugh.
I do think community checks is important. So if someone come and represent a certain community, and you have people who are not, who actually are losing control, then it's that whoever's part of that community